Tonight on the National Rundown, the latest on the major bridge collapse in Baltimore, the Supreme Court hears arguments on the safety of mifepristone, and a new poll shows U.S. disapproval of the Israel-Hamas war is growing.
Today is another cloudy and wet day, so be sure to keep an umbrella with you. The sun will start reappearing on Friday, and milder temperatures through the week. I'll have the latest forecast for you on tonight's rundown.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Cinderella found the pet that fits her perfectly, and you can too. Share your heart, share your love. Make a shelter pet part of your world. Happily Ever After begins at theshelterpetproject.org.
Thanks for joining us on another edition of the National Rundown. I'm your host, Isaac Linsk. 2 bodies have been recovered and identified in the wake of the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. The remains have been identified as Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes of Mexico and Dorlian Ronial Castillo Cabrera of Guatemala. Both were migrant construction workers filling in potholes when a cargo ship hit one of the structure's support beams, destroying the bridge almost entirely. 4 other construction workers are presumed dead, but recovery efforts have been temporarily halted to clear debris to ensure safe conditions for divers. Besides debris in the water, some of the ship's containers, which may hold hazardous materials, have also been identified as falling in the river. The Supreme Court appears unconvinced by a challenge to the abortion pill mifepristone. Several of the justices indicated that the case should be thrown out, with both liberal and conservative justices questioning if the anti-abortion doctors who are serving as plaintiffs in the case can demonstrate damages from the FDA's loosening of the regulations around the drug. As doctors can already refuse to assist in care related to abortions, the only justices who seemed convinced of the plaintiff's case were Justice Alito and Thomas, who argued that the FDA acted unlawfully when allowing the pills to be sent by mail. More than half of Americans use an iPhone, making Apple the second most valuable company in the world. Now, the Department of Justice has joined 16 states and the District of Columbia in a lawsuit that claims the company has been abusing its power and that consumers are paying the price. Jo Ling Kent has more.
The Department of Justice is taking on Apple. In an 88-page lawsuit, the DOJ says that instead of responding to competitive threats by offering lower smartphone prices, Apple has extracted higher fees from app developers, thwarted innovation, and offered a degraded user experience. The focus, how the DOJ says Apple intentionally boxes out rivals. One example, text messaging with non-iPhone users.
The conversation is not encrypted. Videos are pixelated and grainy. iPhone users perceive rival smartphones as being lower quality because the experience of messaging friends and family who do not own iPhones is worse.
It's something app creator Eric Majakowski told CBS News back in December was unfair and costly to consumers.
Do you feel like Apple has a monopoly on messaging and has created this problem?
I think in the US, they kind of do, right? More than 50% of people in the US use an iPhone, and the #1 app on iPhone is Messages. And it by default excludes Android users from group chats.
Apple says this sweeping lawsuit is wrong on the facts and, if successful, would set a dangerous precedent, empowering government to take a heavy hand in designing people's technology. Experts warn this antitrust case is expected to go on for years.
If the government is successful here, we could end up in a world where the iPhone is a much more open device that plays better with the rest of the tech industry.
And would that mean that prices would potentially go down?
Depending on what changes, we could see the price of apps come down. The prices of smartwatches could come down.
A request for an interview with an Apple executive was declined. Meantime, Apple is defending its approach to the iMessage situation that you heard about there, saying that this is about security and having a product that hits their quality standards. Meantime, if it feels like you're seeing a lot of antitrust lawsuits these days, you are. This is part of a broader trend from the DOJ and the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, going after major tech companies, including Google, Meta, and Amazon, in just the last several months. Jolene Kent, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Amid an ongoing list of charges and accusations, longtime rapper and music mogul Sean Combs has had his private jet tracked to Antigua after being questioned by customs authorities in Miami, according to TMZ. Better known as P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, and Puffy, he was the subject of a bi-coastal home raid courtesy of Homeland Security. Properties of Combs in Los Angeles and Miami were both investigated in response to an ongoing sex trafficking investigation from federal authorities in New York. The raid and investigation come after a litany of sexual assault lawsuits that were recently filed against Combs. After the break, U.S. approval of Israeli military forces shrinking.
I see it!
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Hey, did you know that 2.4 million loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home? Go to theshelterpetproject.org and search your local shelters and rescues. Go for a cuddle with your next best friend. Adopt.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But I get it, you're busy, and busy people can't have prediabetes. I read that wrong. They can, okay? Just go to the site.
According to the latest Gallup poll, U.S. support for the Israeli military actions in Gaza is dwindling. The approval rating has gone down considerably in the 6 months since the tragic Hamas attacks in early October. The approval rating now sits at 36%, almost 20% less than the 50% reported back in November when Gallup had taken its first poll. On partisan lines, Republican approval remains steady at 64 to 70%, as opposed to the approval rating from independents and Democrats, which sit at 29 and 18% respectively. Now, Abigail joins us to talk about some updates regarding the investigation surrounding P. Diddy. Hello, Abigail. How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. So as it stands, I believe the investigation into Diddy, there aren't any official charges yet, correct?
No, there are no formal charges, and no federal authorities have even accused him of a crime yet. But they did execute the raid on his 2 properties, and there are just a litany of different civil lawsuits, one that he decided to settle the day after it was filed.
And to my knowledge, it was the Department of Homeland Security, as opposed to any other major agency in the states, that executed the raid. Is there a particular reason why that is?
Yes, well, the Department of Homeland Security handles anything related to trafficking. Mm-hmm. So this totally fell under their jurisdiction rather than the FBI's.
Mm-hmm. And I know in some of the court documents that have now been released to the public, other famous artists like Meek Mill out of Philadelphia, Kevin Gates is another one, but probably the most well-known is R. Kelly. Why exactly is his name being brought up in this case?
Well, his name keeps being brought up not only just because of histories of both of the artists being very similar with the similar accusations of racketeering and trafficking, but also it's the same prosecutor that got the convictions of racketeering and sex trafficking from R. Kelly that is now going after Combs.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so out of the Southern District of New York, it's U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. And he's the one who secured those convictions for R. Kelly, and now he is also the one leading this investigation into Combs.
Oh, no kidding. That's a very interesting aspect to that. I hadn't realized that both cases were related like that.
Yeah.
Are there any other fun facts having to do with this case here?
Not really at the time. It's still ongoing, and it's all very fresh. But, you know.
All right. Well, I guess the only question that remains is, did he do it?
Yeah, we can't say for sure yet.
No.
But.
All right. Thank you, Abigail. 3 Boeing executives, including its CEO, Dave Calhoun, are stepping down amid the ongoing investigation of the safety of their passenger jets after a door panel blew out on a Boeing 737 MAX plane back in January. The FBI has informed passengers that they may be considered victims of a crime. The investigation is ongoing despite the step down of the executives and the company's CEO. Coming up, the Montana Supreme Court makes sure voting is easy and equitable.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Montana's Supreme Court has ensured that the citizens of Montana have easy access to voting. The state's highest court struck down 4 laws proposed by the Republican legislature in 2021 aiming to make it more difficult to vote. The laws, which bar same-day voter registration as well as the use of a student ID as a permissible form of ID, would have made it much more difficult for people to vote, especially young people. The Democratic Party of Montana lists this action as a victory for democracy. And now to Allison Cassidy with the sports.
Veteran ESPN anchor John Anderson has announced that he is officially retiring this year from his seat on SportsCenter. After nearly 2 decades of the renowned sports anchor says that he will be retiring in June following his contract expiration with the company. Anderson explains that changes in the company have helped him make his decision to step down. However, he will continue a career in sports broadcast elsewhere. NCAA President Charlie Baker has called for proposition betting to be banned as March Madness betting begins, which prevents viewers from betting based on a college athlete's possible statistics throughout the game rather than betting on the final score. It is argued that prop betting allows more room for scandals as athletes have more control over their performance, which leads to an altered win. An estimated $2.7 billion will be gambled towards this year's basketball championship. Wander Franco of the Tampa Bay Rays is placed on administrative leave and taken off of the 40-man roster as he is investigated for possibly having an inappropriate relationship with a minor. The shortstop has been off the field since last August and will now continue to be on leave through June 1st as the investigation continues in the Dominican Republic. He is accused of bribing a 14-year-old girl's family with extravagant gifts and money in exchange for their consent for the two to be in a relationship. Franco's status is subject to change with the resolution of the case. The Los Angeles Dodgers are big spenders this season with $1.4 billion budgets being spent on 5 key players. Catcher Will Smith has officially settled a 10-year contract with the team paired with a whopping $140 million. This amount passes last year's $8.8 million contract Smith was holding with the Los Angeles team. It is no surprise that the Dodgers are spending the big bucks on Smith. With his .263 average, 91 home runs, and 308 RBLs in 6 seasons, he can easily be considered one of the most valuable players on the field. Back to you, Isaac.
Stay with us. After the break, Jared tells us about the sunnier days ahead. engineers from MIT have taken to beating some sense into the household robots they are developing. In order to train these robots, whose primary functions are simple tasks like serving food or wiping up a spill, the engineers bump, nudge, and push the robots. The machines can typically do only whatever the instructions pre-programmed into them. But thanks to MIT's new large language models, the robots have developed a form of common sense that allows them to adjust any disturbance in their programming. Give it a few more months, and I'm sure the MIT team will have something straight out of the Jetsons. And now, here's Jared with the weather.
Hello, I'm Jared Matteo with your 5-day weather forecast. Tonight's forecast is some clouds with a high of 52 and a low of 43. Friday is sunny with a few clouds, a high of 56 and a low of 35. On Saturday, it's pretty cloudy with a high of 59 and a low of 34. Sunday, the sun returns with a high of 63 and a low of 46. Monday is when the rain comes in with a high of 51 and a low of 42. On Tuesday, the rain stays with a high of 51 and a low of 43. This has been your 5-day weather forecast. As you can see with the photos I took, it's been a pretty dreary day on campus with rain happening on and off. We do have sun coming through the weekend though, and hopefully in the end, it erases this.
Really some tough weather we've been having the past couple of days, Jared. It really seems like Mother Nature can't make up her mind.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent. We got sun in the weekend, and then the next week just starts with more rain.
Yeah, well, what I can only hope is that this just means our April showers are earlier, so we'll get some nice flowers sooner than later, huh?
Hopefully so.
Yeah, the only thing I can really wish for is that 2 weeks from now when that eclipse is happening, that hopefully we'll have some sunny days, you know?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, you think you'll be watching the eclipse?
Oh, I sure will.
All right, well, I think that's all we have for tonight's rundown. I'm your host, Isaac Linsk. Have a good night.